Hello and welcome to PrinTech, the Print's technology show. At the Google Developers Conference recently, CEO Sundar Pichai said AI is having a very busy year. Over the course of the next 2 hours, top Google executives rolled out features, updates, and products that were all AI heavy. To understand this AI domination of the flagship annual event, we are joined by our tech expert, Sahil Mohan Gupta. Welcome, Sahil. Welcome to PrinTech. Welcome to the Print once again.
Always a pleasure.
What's happening at Google? Palm 2, Bard, search powered by AI in Tailwind, responsible AI, update to Find My Device, Pixel 7a, Pixel tablet, both powered by AI. Everything that they came up this last week
Yeah.
had AI written all over it.
Yes.
So what's happening in this space?
I was extensively covering Google I/O. In the last, we are in May right now, so you could say last 6-7 months, AI has just taken over the world with ChatGPT coming out, and now Google is finally responding back in kind. I wrote about this in our column, which I think went yesterday. This was always my belief that Google has a lot of technology that they've been just holding back because they want to roll it out in the most careful, most conservative way. And Microsoft just kind of forced their hand because Bing has literally no market share, and now then Satya Nadella comes out and says that I want to make Google dance, and with OpenAI's technology they've just released this new Bing, which is the most dramatic update to a search engine that we have seen in decades, and it has gained a lot of market share as well, not something that would really hurt Google right now, but at least it got a lot of mind share.
Right.
And it is very effective, particularly with ChatGPT 4 getting integrated into it. So now Google had to respond. So firstly, Bard now comes out of a very limited preview, which was only available to US and UK users. Now we all can use it. Over 180 countries, and the few countries that are missing are, funny enough, EU countries. And Bard is now powered by Google's latest large language model, which is called Palm 2. And Palm 2 is actually pervasive across Google products now.
That's right. You were just before we started, you were talking about Palm 2 and Palm, the previous version.
Yeah.
Before we go on further, if you could briefly explain our viewers what exactly is Palm 2, because you were saying that it sort of permeates through almost all the latest offerings from Google.
It is the basis of generative AI at Google right now. So much like what GPT has done, like ChatGPT is the basis for Bing and all of its new capabilities. Similarly, Palm 2 does it for Google. It is the basis for Bard. It is going to be basis for this help me write feature that will be now on Gmail, on Docs, it will help you do your spreadsheets, your slides. They also are releasing a more enterprise grade feature called Duet AI, which will be kind of an assistant which will be working with you. Say you're writing an article and then you're stuck, then it'll prompt you and offer some help.
Right.
So it'll do some really crazy stuff. Now they have they are kind of doing their own version of plugins. So they've tied up with Adobe. So for their Firefly generative AI image generator. So now Google will be able to generate images out of nowhere. But they are doing things in a much more careful way. That is quite clear. They're going heavy on citations. So there's a new generative search experience,
right,
which is currently in Google Labs. So people can experience it. It's not yet active in India, but eventually it'll come here as well, where you will get a summary of what you've actually searched for. But then you scroll up, then you have the old 10 links as well. So it's a very different interface from what Bing does. Bing, on one side, it's like divided into columns. Either you are in the chat interface or you are inside the traditional search interface. Here everything is kind of molded into one. They're integrating shopping, reviews and all of that, so like kind of my job as a reviewer is in danger in the future, I would say. So it's all across the board. Even Android now gets a bit of generative AI. Android 14, you can generate wallpapers, so you don't need to download a wallpaper app. You can just give some instructions and accordingly it will just generate a
Right.
wallpaper.
Sahil, before we get into the Android updates and now they're being powered by generative AI,
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand Google and Microsoft, which is Bing,
Yeah.
so to say, they have always been different in
Yes.
their approach, interface, and everything. But in last 6-8 months, we have seen ChatGPT take the lead for Bing, or Bing, so to say, taking the lead for due to ChatGPT. But when it comes to data, or the amount or the quantity of data, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Google is something that has, as far as the search data is concerned, it has the biggest data set. I would not data set would be a right word to use or not.
Yeah.
But how is it then that it's Microsoft and ChatGPT which has taken the lead and not Google per se?
See, this is how transformers work. Transformers were, funny enough, invented at Google, but transformers don't need that much data. They learn on their own, and then they can scour for data. And
so you're saying it's a different game altogether?
It's a different game altogether, but at the same time, inherent technology, troves of data, they obviously do help. And my sense out here is that even right now, if you compare Bard and ChatGPT, in there, like if you have a subscription to ChatGPT Plus, which costs around $20 a month, there is a difference. Bard is free, but Bard is a very fast, it will give you very quick responses, but it's a very limited response. ChatGPT can go really beyond, but it is very slow as well. And right now you have to pay for it as well.
Right.
Like, not like if you want to use it at will. So the approach is different, but this is going to be an arms race, because the moment Microsoft pulled the trigger, Google's hand was forced, because they lost market cap. There was a perception in the market that Google has suddenly fallen behind. So now they're flexing their muscles. And interesting enough, this is why Geoffrey Hinton, who is the godfather of AI, in fact, Ilya Sutskever, who is the chief scientist at OpenAI, was one of his students. He has recently he just left Google, and he has come out and said same thing, that we have to be very careful with these technologies. And the moment Microsoft announced all of this, Google was forced. At the end of the day, we operate in a capitalist system. These companies are responsible towards their shareholders, and if they are going to lose market cap, they are going to lose mind share, then they are going to respond in kind. And Hinton is actually quite worried at the pace these AI models are developing, including Palm 2. He actually cited the example of Palm 2. He said that last year, it dawned upon him that Palm 2 was learning in a different way to the human brain. Now, Hinton's work, his entire life has been dedicated to understanding how the brain works. And that's where he kind of pioneered the concept of neural networks in AI models. And a lot of these generators are also working on neural networks. What dawned upon him was that they can absorb way more information with fewer neural networks.
Right.
While our human brain has way more neural networks, but our capacity to absorb information is lesser by orders of magnitude, actually, and to also share that information. Like when we tell ChatGPT to we punch in some words and say, write an essay about this and that, we can't write that fast. We can't even think that fast,
Right.
but it will just, within seconds, it will generate all that content.
Right, that penetration is something that we saw last week
Yeah.
across the product line or
Yes.
across the updates and releases and launches that Google came up with last week.
Yeah.
Everything had the AI signature to it.
Yeah.
So, Sahil, you've been closely watching it. What, according to you, or for you, what is it that stood out? One product or maybe one update that you think is going to probably one up the game for Google against Microsoft?
I wouldn't say there was one product out there particularly that would like change the game, but what I did see that Google is moving aggressively. It is, I mean, Microsoft is not going to have it its way. Like, it will be a battle. It will be a battle of the titans. But what I saw, some elements of technology which just blew my mind, which were still in a very prototype phase. Like, for example, they had a universal translator, which basically had this lady talk about education in English and on a video, and then suddenly it reverted to another language, and the lip syncing was being done in that other language. She wasn't speaking in that other language. So that was generative AI doing it. So it was kind of a deep fake generator.
Right.
So like, I mean, like, I wrote a column about Star Trek, and like, this is what you see in it.
Right.
This is what happens. Like, humans are talking to a different species. All of them are talking in English.
Yeah.
Why? That the answer for that is there's a universal translator. So they actually showed it.
It almost feels like the future has come into the present.
Absolutely.
And what do you think is going to be Microsoft's next response to it? Is there, do you think a response is coming? And I also want to know, how do you see the safety aspect of it? Because one of the things that which I talked about was also safe AI, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So how do you see it? How do you see, is there some, do you think we need a regulation
Absolutely.
or something like that?
I mean, safety is going to be a huge thing. I feel what Microsoft is going to do is just going to build upon the momentum they already have. They've announced a series of products, something we spoke about in our last podcast, which involved ChatGPT. So those products haven't really been rolled out. Then Microsoft's developer conference is going to happen. Microsoft Build is going to happen soon. So they may have some announcements there as well. So they will also prime the pump a little more. And safety is going to be a huge thing, which Google basically has been talking about. Say, if there's an image that's been just generated by generative AI, so they are building markers, metadata, baking in those signals for people to know that this is not being created by a real human, or maybe if there's a work of fiction or something. So they are trying to build markers. But this is what Hinton has been talking about, and this is why Hinton said that he left Google. He had been there for over 10 years, and he said that, he's become a little worried about how fast these things are moving, and if he has to speak about them more freely, then it's just not fair, him being at Google on their roles.
Right.
And he said that he didn't say anything against Google. He said that they are doing their job, and they have been actually very careful about this, more careful than other companies. But he is concerned that this intelligence is moving so quickly, and it will, at the rate it is moving, it will probably get smarter than us humans. And history tells us that once a certain form of intelligence is smarter than the other, it is what kind of controls. The inferior form of intelligence can never gain control. And so now is the time to build the guardrails into these systems. It will still take another 15, 20, 30 years, but that's still a pretty short time. These guardrails have to be baked in right now, so that we have control. Right now, we are the goal setters for these AI platforms. There will come a point that they will be able to set their own goals, and that's when things will get out of hand. In fact, Sam Altman of OpenAI, the CEO of OpenAI, he met regulators in the US, and he has been talking about a global regulatory organization, something like the IAEA, which kind of
Atomic energy.
Yeah, the Atomic Energy Organization. Similar organization for AI, which kind of keeps a tab on things. But the concern out there is, are the companies in China or Russia are they going to play
Right.
ball? But he believes that like nobody wants an end of the world scenario, not even China, not even the Russians. So he feels there's a very good chance that they will comply. On top of it, he feels that all of these AI models are fundamentally running off GPUs. Like, for example, Microsoft has clusters of 10,000 NVIDIA H100 GPUs running ChatGPT in the Azure cloud. So those are signals, those are heat maps that if somebody is using so many GPU clusters, they're probably training a big fat AI model.
Maybe then in that case
So there have to be some kind of guardrails, some kind of regulation.
I guess we need more intelligence, and we hope that technology doesn't checkmate us humans, and we get the parallel regulation as well.
Absolutely.
Well, we end it here, and in this episode of PrinTech. Thank you, Sahil.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for watching.
Yes.